If your life doesn't feel like a hero's journey right now, that's kind of good. It might mean you're finally telling the truth. Because so many of my clients and the people I come across come to me carrying a common fear. My story isn't worthy, it isn't big enough, and it's not impactful enough. And underneath that fear, there's often a belief they don't realize they're holding on to. If I haven't lived through something huge, something devastating, or something dramatic, then maybe I don't deserve the stage or the spotlight, and maybe I don't deserve to be heard. And I understand where this belief comes from, because we live inside a culture that has taught us that meaning must be earned through catastrophe. That transformation only counts if it's cinematic, and that wisdom only counts if it comes wrapped up in trauma. And here's a strange example of how easily our brains get hooked onto that. Years ago, I read The Salt Path, and I was gripped. It's got all the ingredients of a story that moves you. There was a quest, and there was hardship, and there were many moments of despair. There was a long, poignant walk forward, and there was a recovery that felt almost miraculous. However, more recently, there's been a lot of scrutiny around the story and how it was told. There's been an investigative podcast series called The Walkers, The Real Salt Path, raising questions about parts of the narrative and how it began. And there's also been major press coverage of allegations and denials connected to the memoir's backstory. Now, I'm not sharing this to attack anyone, but because it reveals something important about all of us. We spend so much time comparing our lives to other people's heroes' journeys, the polished ones and the dramatic ones and the inspiring ones, that can distort how we feel about our own. It can make us mistrust our quieter and less dramatic turning points. The subtler pivots that opened up a path to something you hadn't imagined but that wasn't glaringly obvious. It's about our ordinary courage, making everyday decisions and navigating this thing called life. So if your story doesn't neatly fit into the classic hero arc, that does not mean you have no story. It just might mean you've got a truer, more honest one. Because here's something I'm exploring. And I've been curious when researching and recording this entire season, Stories in Our DNA, that we don't just learn stories learn us. And one particular story structure, more than any other, became stitched into our cultural tapestry, and that is the hero's journey. It's everywhere. It's in films, it's in books, it's in media, it's in TED Talks and brand narratives and bios and origin stories, and even the way we talk about business. And we inherited it because it became the main narrative we saw, the main narrative our parents saw and their parents, reaching way back into the distant past. Joseph Campbell made the hero's journey famous through his work in comparative mythology, especially the hero with 1,000 faces. And this went on to shape modern storytelling in a hugely massive way. And we love it because as humans, we need to relate to struggle. We also need hope. We need to believe that suffering can mean something and there's a way through. So here's what I'm doing in this episode. I'm not here to debunk the hero's journey. I'm grateful for it. It shaped my early work. It shaped my own TEDx talk. It shaped how I have coached speakers for years. The episode is about something else. This is about recognizing what we inherited and choosing consciously when it serves us and when it doesn't. Because sometimes the most powerful story isn't, look what I did, but it's look what became possible when I stopped trying to do it alone. So if you are ready, then let's begin. Part 1, the inheritance, the default font of modern culture. I want you to imagine story structures like fonts. You can write the same sentence in different fonts and it changes how it feels. Some fonts feel playful. Some feel formal, some feel sharp, and some feel soft. And the hero's journey became the default font of our modern culture. Not because it's the only way humans make meaning, it isn't. but because the easiest template is the hero's journey to export. So here's a metaphor I love about when thinking about this. The hero's journey is like a shipping container. It stacks well, it ships well, it fits the global supply chain of attention, it's recognizable in seconds, which means it's easy to reward. And once the structure becomes easy to recognize and reward, it becomes the structure we start forcing everything into: careers and relationships and identities and brands and even healing. Think about it. We've trained ourselves to look for the same story patterns everywhere. Here's the struggle. Here's the turning point. Here's the breakthrough. Here's the win. Even LinkedIn has been trained to recognize it. Even personal branding has been trained to package it. Even the way we tell our own lives to ourselves starts to sound like a trailer. And if your life doesn't feel like a trailer, you can start to think maybe it isn't valuable. But that's not the truth. That's just the inheritance talking. Part 2. Why it became a default and why our brains love it. So why did this story structure become dominant? Let's keep it high level but juicy. Simply put, it traveled well. Because it's completely compressible. You can tell it around a fire, you can tell it in a 2-hour film, you can tell it in a keynote, you can tell it in a caption. It fits short attention spans and long attention spans, and it fits cinema. 2 hours with one protagonist and one problem and one resolution, and the audience knows where they are. It's a map. And all the big blockbusters follow this arc. Star Wars, most famously, Harry Potter, Shrek, all of them pretty much. And it also fits capitalism's obsession with individual success. A single person winning is easy to market. It creates icons and it sells programs, it sells identities, it turns complexity into a clean narrative. It's kind of like be like them. And it also fits personal branding because it makes a person feel like a case study. It's a proof of concept. It's a before and after. It's a journey. And the internet loves a clean transformation. And it became the easiest template to recognize and reward because the brain loves shortcuts. Familiar structure feels safe. A known pattern reduces cognitive load. And there's also something deeper and something that, of course, I love, that from an evolutionary lens, humans seek stories that help us survive. We are drawn to narratives that show us what to do in danger. We are drawn to stories that say, the ordeal can be survived, the pain can lead somewhere, the person can return with something valuable. It's hope with a sequence to follow. It's a nervous system map. And sometimes when life is hard, a map is exactly what we need. Part 3, the hero's journey in my own life and what it gave me. I, of course, see the hero's journey in my own story. There was an ordinary world, a life that looked functional, maybe even successful, but underneath there was imposter syndrome humming away. There was a sense of not good enough that shaped how I showed up. And then there was the threshold moment, crossing into the unknown, running away from a career after returning from maternity leave because I didn't feel good enough in the big rooms with the senior people, because I thought I'd lost my edge, lost my skills, and lost myself completely in the fuzz of motherhood. And then there was the ordeal, which was my marriage broke down. And I began to see that old wiring had been sabotaging me for years. Staying quiet, keeping the peace, not speaking up, making myself smaller so everything could be okay and fine. And my nervous system paid the price. I got crippling anxiety, panic attacks, shrinking back to stay safe, not going out, not seeing anyone. That constant sense of uncertainty, the sense of living on the edge of the next wobble, and the next panic attack in a public place. And then the turning point. I had to face my fears. I had to turn towards them. So I dove into self-development and books and therapy and making a conscious choice to do life differently and reassessing my values and setting new ones and setting bold goals. And one of those goals was a TED Talk, which, if you know me, is both hilarious and perfectly on brand because I've always had this tension. I love ideas, I love story, I love meaning, and yet being seen was never that simple because of a history of blushing and going red and not actually liking being in the spotlight at all and having conditional extroversion. But then I did all that and I returned with the gift. I delivered the TED Talk, and then I started helping other people do the same with passion and mission. And I started gathering a community around me. And then I became a curator and a speaker coach for TED and started making more bold moves, started putting my hand up, started getting more visible, getting out there, believing in my voice and my message. And one sentence that became like an internal compass for me was, a voice not heard is a life not lived. So I don't want to disregard the hero's journey in this episode. It's something I used from the very beginning, and I've gone on to use it many times since. The hero's journey can be powerful. It can be a structure that holds you through change. It can give your life meaning when you need meaning, and it can help you tell the truth about what you've moved through. However, here's where we pivot. Part 4, where it helps and why I'm being generous with it. I want to be fair. The hero's journey isn't the villain in this story. It's a tool. And tools are wonderful until we treat them like laws. So when it helps because it gives people courage and meaning, and it gives structure to change, threshold, ordeal, return. It helps audiences follow. It simplifies complex journeys. Sometimes a structure is like a stretcher. It carries you when you're not ready to walk. So yes, I'm grateful. Also, if it becomes the only shape we accept as valid, it can start to distort us, which brings me to the 3 distortions. Part 5, where it harms 3 distortions we've inherited. Distortion 1, the lone hero lie. Here's the lie. That transformation should be done alone. That needing support means you're weak. That the strong person in the room is the one who carries everything silently. In leadership, this sounds like, I must be strong, not supported. In business, it sounds like, I must grind, not collaborate. And in life, it sounds like, if I need help, I've failed. But no nervous system settles in isolation. No human becomes themselves without mirrors, and no one heals without connection. So when we buy the lone hero lie, we don't just become a bit tired and exhausted. We become lonely, and we become brittle, and we start to perform strength instead of building real resilience. Distortion 2, the constant quest trap. This one is so common, especially for founders and leaders, and it's the belief that there's a summit, that one day you're going to arrive at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that mythical peak of self-actualization, and finally you're going to feel done. You're going to finally feel settled. You're going to finally feel fulfilled. But for a certain personality type, and I'm talking from experience here, that arrival point isn't real. Because if you run your own business, you're in a constant state of energy in motion, flux. Energy moving through a field is always reacting, adapting, responding to the environment. And if you run a business where you are the brand you're building, then you're in flux too. Your life experience changes you. Your values deepen. Your passions shapeshift. The way you see the world evolves as you move through different rooms, different seasons, different challenges, and different conversations, which means you're always evolving. And the danger is, if your life becomes a perpetual quest, your nervous system stays in pursuit mode. You never arrive, you never rest, and you start to treat stillness like failure, and you can't build a life on a chase scene. Distortion 3, the trauma as credential myth. Now, this one is one of the most common objections I hear from clients. They want to speak, they want to share, they want to lead. But if they feel their story isn't valid, unless something dramatic happened, they hold back. If I didn't suffer, I don't deserve the stage. If I didn't have big trauma, I have nothing meaningful to say. And I want to say this so clearly: meaning is not only found in catastrophe. Wisdom is not only earned through devastation. Some lives are reshaped by earthquakes and others by tides. And from coaching hundreds of people around their story, the thing that matters is not how dramatic the plot is. It's what the story means to you now. It's the remodeling, it's the insight, it's the elixir that you are sharing with others. that could be so simple and yet so powerful. You do not have to drag yourself through the sewers like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption to be a brilliant leader or build a thriving business or have something true to offer. Sometimes the turning point is really subtle. Sometimes it's just a boundary, a conversation you didn't avoid, a moment you chose yourself, a moment you stopped betraying your own truth. That counts, and it's relatable and it's real and it's human. Part 6, the replacement, relational arc. So what do we do instead? Because we don't throw away the hero's journey. It's too good for that, and we can't erase what it's brought us and continues to. What we're just got to stop doing is worshipping it as the only valid shape of change. And we remember something important that is often overlooked. Even in Joseph Campbell's version, the hero meets others. Mentors exist in the structure. Allies exist in the structure. But modern culture has a way of editing them out, because we keep the hero, but we cut the village, we keep the grind, but we cut the support, we keep the triumph, but we cut the interdependence. And so here is an antidote I want to offer you. I call it the relational arc. And it says, we are shaped in relationship and not in isolation. And change happens through three things: mirrors, bridges, and containers. And the treasure is not often in the personal glory, but it's in things like repair and reconnection and contribution and belonging and mentorship and stewardship. Let me bring these to life for you. So let's look at mirrors first. Mirrors are the people who reflect you back to yourself. They name what you couldn't see. They tell you the truth, sometimes kindly, maybe sometimes not so much. They reveal the pattern underneath the pattern. And a mirror might be a friend who says, I don't think you realize how much you're minimizing yourself. Or it could be a coach that says, that's not a confidence problem, it's a boundary problem. Or it might be in therapy or with a mentor. It could be a conversation that really lands with you in a really impactful way. Then we've got bridges. And bridges are the people who connect you to a new room, a new window, a new door or path, a new identity, a new opportunity, a new way of being. And sometimes one introduction changes your entire trajectory. One door closes, another one opens. The path is working just as it should, even though it might not feel it at the time. And sometimes one person sees you differently, and suddenly you can see yourself too. And then we have containers, which are spaces that hold you through the messy middle bit. The middle where the old identity is dissolving and the new one hasn't formed yet. It could be a peer group, a team, a community, a program, a room, a safe space, a new space. It could be a place where your nervous system feels you can exhale, or where you don't have to perform to be someone else, or where change becomes possible because you're not doing it in the dark. And this is the thing. When you start telling your story through the relational arc, it changes the impact. Because in modern communication, talks, keynotes, briefing, content, presentations, pitches, the shift is profound. It shifts from, look what I did, to look what changed because we did this together. And it does something really magical. It makes the audience feel included, belonging to what you're saying, and not just inspired, but admired. And it turns your story from like a performance to participation. Part 7, a case study. So I'm going to blend two types of stories here because both of them matter. There's the leader story, a leader who thinks they have to be the lone hero, strong, self-contained, unshakable. They're the person everyone relies on, but nobody really holds because they feel like they are so super strong themselves. And this leader constantly carries the weight of decisions of people and outcomes, and inevitably they start to burn out. But what changes them isn't a dramatic implosion. It's relational. It's a mirror. Someone finally reflects the pattern. You don't delegate because you think support is weakness, or it could be a bridge. Someone connects them to a mentor or a sponsor or a new way of leading or seeing things. Or it could be a container, a peer group, a team reset, a safe room where they can actually feel that they can speak honestly. And the treasure that's found isn't the dramatic finale or the glory. It's actually steadier leadership. It's cleaner decisions. It's better relationships. It's a nervous system that no longer lives in permanent threat. And there's a quieter, more subtle turning point story. It's not an earthquake, more like a tide. A person who hasn't had a huge tragedy, no dramatic pivot. But there is a moment where they stop abandoning themselves or their needs. They stop saying yes when they mean no. They stop shape-shifting to keep the peace, and they speak up. They choose honesty, and they honor what they feel, and their life becomes more honest. That is a story. That is a turning point, and that is so worthy. Part 8. Question for you. So here's what I want to leave you with is a question and a mini micro action. What part of your life are you forcing into a hero narrative that actually needs a different shape? And here's a micro action for you. Rewrite the log line. I'd love you to take one current challenge in your life and describe it without the battle language, without the fight or the need to conquer or the urge to grind or the chase to win. Just describe it. Describe the challenge. And notice what new options might appear. I'm going to give you some examples. For example, an old log line might be, I'm battling to grow my business this year. A new one might be, I'm designing a business that can hold the human in it. An old log line might be, I need to conquer my fear of speaking. And the new log line might be, I'm learning to feel safe being seen. An old one might be, I'm fighting to get through this season. And a new one might be, I'm asking for support and choosing steadiness. Because when we remove this battle language, we often stop treating our life like a conflict and we start treating it like a relationship with ourselves and with others and with the season we are in at that particular time. So what I'm really saying here is you didn't just learn stories learned you. And if you've been feeling like your story isn't big enough or impactful enough or dramatic enough, then you're trying to feel like you need to fit into a hero's journey narrative for clicks and likes and validation and clients. And I want you to consider that maybe the problem isn't your life not being dramatic enough. Maybe it's the template you inherited and you get to choose a different shape. Not a lone hero being in a constant quest trap or feeling like you need to use some kind of trauma as credential, but a real and true relational arc with mirrors and bridges and containers. Because the real treasure so often, it is not the personal glory. It's repair and connection. It's contribution and belonging. And it's the moment you finally stop trying to do it all alone. In the next episode, I'm going to be looking at different ways of telling stories that build on what we've explored here and share structures and narratives from all over the world that have been passed down through millennia and form alternative ways we can still tell stories instead of the well-trodden ones. So I look forward to next time.